Please don't take my life. I promise to stay away from the land. Forgive me for my past mistakes. Please, I beg you. I do not believe in forgiveness. You were warned to stay away from that land, but you refused. Now you must bear the consequence. Stop there!
25-year-old Adanma walked along the narrow bush path with a bundle of firewood balanced perfectly on her head. A smile rested on her face as she moved gracefully through the evening air. Before she left home, her mother had announced that she was preparing Oha, Adanma's favorite soup. The thought alone had filled her with excitement. As she walked, she imagined the steaming pot sitting over the fire. It was dusk and darkness was slowly settling over the village and surrounding forest. Adanma hummed softly as she walked. Everything felt normal until she heard a voice from the nearby bush. She stopped walking and looked around. The firewood remained balanced on her head as she listened carefully, but she didn't hear the sound again. She shook her head and continued walking. Then she heard it again. This time it was clearer.
Please, don't hurt me. Please, don't hurt me.
It was a man's voice. He sounded very weak but desperate. Adanma stopped again. The sound had come from somewhere inside the thick bush, a short distance away from the path. Curious to know what was going on, she turned toward the direction of the voice. As she walked gently inside the bush, the voice sounded closer. It sounded like someone pleading. Her heart began to beat faster. Maybe someone was injured and needed help. Without thinking much further, she carefully lowered the firewood from her head and placed it beside the path. She brushed dust from her wrapper and slowly stepped into the bush. Thick leaves scratched against her arms as she moved. The deeper she went, the darker it became. The voice grew louder. Adanma lowered herself and began moving quietly. She parted a cluster of leaves and peered ahead. What she saw made her stop breathing. A man was tied tightly to a large tree. His face was covered with sweat and dirt. Two men stood before him. Even in the fading light, Adanma immediately recognized them. The one holding a cutlass was Kelechi, the son of the wealthiest village chief. The other man was his friend Okpara. The tied man was no other than Obiora, a humble and kind farmer. Obiora was begging. His voice trembled with desperation.
Please, don't take my life. I promise to stay away from the land. Forgive me for my past mistakes. Please, I beg you.
Kelechi did not look interested in forgiving anyone.
I do not believe in forgiveness. You were warned to stay away from that land, but you refused. Now you must bear the consequence.
Obiora kept pleading, but the more he begged, the colder their faces became. Adanma's heart began to beat fast. Fear began crawling through her body. She knew she should leave. She knew she should turn around and run back to the path, yet her feet refused to move. She remained hidden behind the leaves, watching and praying silently that the situation would somehow end peacefully. She was lost in thoughts. By the time she looked towards them again, everything changed. The begging stopped. Obiora's motionless body rested on the tree. Kelechi and his friend took Obiora's life. Adanma felt her blood run cold. The realization of what had just happened struck her like lightning. Her mouth fell open, and before she could stop herself, she screamed. The sound burst from her throat. Immediately, Kelechi and Okpara spun around, realizing that someone had seen them. As they turned, they saw Adanma as she covered her mouth, trying to prevent further screaming. Kelechi's eyes locked onto hers and he recognized her immediately. Before he could take a step forward, Adanma turned and ran as fast as she could. Branches whipped against her face. Leaves tore at her clothes. Her bare feet pounded against the forest floor. Behind her, the men shouted. She must not escape. Fear surged through every part of Adanma's body, but she kept running. She burst out of the bush and back onto the path. The firewood she had gathered lay abandoned where she had left it. She ran past it without slowing down. As she ran, the realization terrified her even more. The village was still far away, and night was arriving quickly. She knew that if they caught her, they would take her life, so she continued to run. As she ran, the ground sloped downward. Then she saw the village river. She didn't even realize she was running towards the village river. Adanma stopped abruptly. For a brief moment, she stared at the water. The river looked frightening at night, and Adanma could not swim, not even a little. She had never gone beyond the riverbank in her entire life. A crashing sound behind her made her turn. Kelechi appeared between the trees. Okpara was right behind him. They had found her. Adanma's heart nearly stopped. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The two men stared at her. She stared back. Kelechi's lips slowly curved into a terrifying smile.
You see? Just surrender yourself, young woman.
Adanma's eyes darted toward the water, then back to the men, then back to the water. The choice before her was impossible, but without giving herself time to think, Adanma spun around and leaped. Her body caught through the air. Then, splash! She was inside the river. The freezing water swallowed her instantly. The river rushed into every part of her body. She kicked wildly, but the river dragged her downward, deeper and deeper. Everything became blurry. Kelechi and Okpara walked to the riverbank few seconds after Adanma jumped inside. For several seconds, neither spoke. They simply stared at the water, waiting, expecting her head to emerge, but it never did. They waited for over 30 minutes. Okpara finally broke the silence. She is gone. Kelechi continued staring at the water. His expression remained hard. By this time, it was completely dark. Some minutes later, Kelechi finally nodded. A smile slowly appeared on his face. Now I know she is gone. She couldn't swim, he muttered with satisfaction. Okpara released a breath. The fear that had gripped him since Adanma's scream finally began to fade. The river had solved their problem. As far as they were concerned, Adanma was dead. The two men turned and disappeared into the darkness, heading back toward the village. Back in the village, Adanma's mother was becoming worried. The pot of soup sat over the fire. The meal that had made Adanma smile earlier that evening was ready, yet her daughter had not returned. She stepped outside her small compound and looked down the path again and again. No sign of her. She began pacing. Something was definitely wrong, she told herself. As she stood outside the compound gate, she noticed her elderly neighbor returning home. Without hesitation, she hurried toward him. Papa Chukwu, have you seen Adanma?" The old man stopped. "No. She went to gather firewood hours ago. She should have returned before sunset." The old man's face immediately grew serious. He knew Adanma well. Everyone in the village did. She was responsible and respectful, not the type to wander about after dark. Without wasting another moment, he called for his son. Within minutes, his son arrived, a strong 30-year-old young man who served as the village youth leader. After hearing the situation, he quickly gathered several young men from nearby compounds. Word spread rapidly. Soon, a search party had formed. Lanterns were lit, torches were prepared. The men headed toward the bush. Adanma's mother followed them for a short distance before being persuaded to stay behind. For over an hour, the search continued. The young men called her name repeatedly. They searched the paths, they searched nearby clearings. But none of them dared venture too deep into the forest at night. The deeper sections were dangerous even during daylight. Eventually, the group returned. Their faces told the story before they even spoke. "We couldn't find her," the youth leader announced. The words struck Adanma's mother like a hammer. Tears immediately filled her eyes. "But don't lose hope," the youth leader quickly added. "At first light, we will organize a larger search. We will search every corner of the forest tomorrow." The others nodded in agreement. Adanma's mother tried to be strong, but as she returned to her compound, fear gripped her heart. For the first time that night, she began to cry. Back in the river, Adanma continued to sink. She began to struggle for breath, kicking hard. But just when she thought she would give up, she suddenly realized she was breathing inside the water. She opened her mouth instinctively. No water rushed into her lungs. She was breathing as naturally as she would on land. The realization terrified her. She stopped moving and stared around herself. A strange force seemed to be gently pulling her downward, as though invisible hands were guiding her somewhere. She had absolutely no control over it. She continued descending deeper and deeper. The river around her slowly changed. The darkness began to fade. Soft blue lights appeared in the distance. Soon she realized the lights were not coming from the water. They were coming from plants. Strange glowing plants covered the riverbed. Massive trees with silver leaves swayed beneath the water. Adanma stared in amazement. Nothing about this place looked natural. It felt like she had entered another world. Then she heard voices. Turning around slowly, she searched for their source, and what she saw almost stopped her heart. The creatures swimming toward her looked human from the waist up. But below their waist were powerful fishtails covered in shimmering scales. Mermaids. Adanma's mouth fell open. More mermaids emerged from the glowing landscape. Some stopped what they were doing and stared at her. Others swam closer. Several mermaids pointed at her. Others exchanged confused looks. Then the crowd slowly parted. Two female mermaids swam forward. Neither spoke. They simply approached Adanma. Before she could react, each took one of her arms. Adanma tried to pull away. The grip was gentle but firm. The two mermaids immediately began swimming very fast. The schools of fish scattered from their path. The speed made Adanma dizzy. Then she saw a gigantic castle built entirely beneath the water. The sight was so magnificent that Adanma forgot her fear for a moment. She had never imagined such beauty could exist. The mermaids carried her through enormous gates. Eventually, they entered a massive chamber. At the far end stood a magnificent throne. Seated upon it was the most beautiful woman Adanma had ever seen. The mermaid's long silver hair flowed around her shoulders. She was obviously the queen of the water. She studied Adanma carefully for several seconds, not uttering a word. Finally, she raised one elegant hand. She did not speak. She did not ask a question. She simply made a small gesture. The meaning was instantly understood. The two female mermaids bowed, then turned. Adanma's heart began racing again. What did that signal mean? Where were they taking her? Why wasn't anyone speaking? She wanted answers, but received none. The mermaids escorted her out of the throne room, down a long corridor, past several guarded doors. Finally, they stopped before a chamber. One of them opened the door. Without explanation, they guided Adanma inside. The room was surprisingly beautiful. The moment she entered, the door closed behind her. Then came the sound of a lock. Her heart sank. She rushed to the door and pounded on it, but no one responded. She slowly backed away, sat in a corner of the bed, and wrapped her arms around her knees. Soon, she dozed off. The next morning, the entire village seemed to be on its feet. News of Adanma's disappearance had spread everywhere. Men abandoned their farms. Women gathered in worried groups. A much larger search party was quickly organized. This time, they intended to search deeper into the forest, far deeper. The village youth leader divided the volunteers into groups. Then the search began. The forest echoed with people calling Adanma's name. Some searched near the paths, others ventured into areas rarely visited by villagers. Then the first discovery was made. One of the searchers found a bundle of firewood abandoned beside a narrow path. The moment they saw it, they knew it must have been the firewood she had gone to fetch. The discovery renewed their determination. Soon after, another group found a pair of slippers, Adanma slippers, lying several meters away from the firewood as though they had fallen off while she was running. Now everyone knew something terrible had happened. The search intensified. Then came another discovery. Near the river bank, one of the young men found a small folded wrapper. The cloth Adanma always used to cushion her head whenever she carried firewood. Silence fell over the group. The river. All signs now pointed toward the river. Another search team stumbled upon Obiora's remains inside the bush. They were shocked to their bones, wondering who could have done that to a peace-loving young farmer like Obiora. Nobody had even realized he was missing. He had no friends and he was not married. He lived a lonely life after the demise of his mother. The search party immediately carried his body back toward the village. Others gathered Adanma's belongings. Adanma's mother collapsed into tears the moment she saw the items. She held the wrapper tightly against her chest, as though doing so could somehow bring her daughter back. The sight broke many hearts. Again and again, she blamed herself. She wished she hadn't sent Adanma to fetch firewood. The guilt consumed her. Every morning, she returned to the river and cried for hours before returning home. The village youths watched closely to see if her remains would surface, but no avail. Adanma lost track of time. She had no idea how many days she spent in that room. The lock suddenly turned one day. The lock turned slowly, and the door opened. Adanma immediately rose to her feet. The same two mermaids that had locked her in entered. They gestured for her to follow. Adanma hesitated and then followed them. The journey back to the throne room felt even longer than before. As they swam through the vast underwater corridors, Adanma noticed that many mermaids had stopped whatever they were doing to watch her pass. Soon they arrived at the grand throne room. The enormous doors opened, the chamber fell silent. The mermaid queen sat upon her throne exactly as before, majestic and powerful. The two escorts guided Adanma forward before bowing and retreating. For several moments, the queen simply stared at her. Then, at last, she spoke. Her voice was calm and beautiful, yet it carried authority that could silence an army. Why did you enter my river? You knew the sun had already set. You did not even know how to swim, yet you still jumped. The entire chamber remained silent. Adanma lowered her head. Then she began speaking. She told the queen about fetching firewood, about hearing a voice in the bush, following it and seeing Obiora tied to a tree. She narrated everything exactly as it happened and why she decided to jump into the river as it was her only option. By the time she finished, tears were running down her face. The queen listened without interruption. When Adanma finally finished speaking, the queen leaned back upon her throne and said, "I shall grant you a wish. Ask for anything you want and it shall be granted." The entire hall stirred. Several mermaids exchanged surprised glances. Clearly, such an offer was rare. Adanma thought for a while and then said, "I want to go home, but I do not want to return helpless. I want Kelechi to pay for his crime. I need powers to be able to expose him and defend myself if need be." The queen studied her carefully. She slowly rose from her throne, descended the steps, and approached Adanma. From beneath the folds of her royal garments, she produced a small object. It looked like a crystal shell. The object pulsed gently with blue light. The queen placed it into Adanma's hands. The moment Adanma touched it, warmth spread through her body. A strange sensation filled her mind. The object vanished into her body. "That is the eye of truth," the queen said calmly. "No evil heart can hide from it. No dark secret can remain concealed before it. When you hold it and focus on a person, their hidden deeds shall be revealed. It can also reveal wicked intentions yet to be carried out. If a man plans murder, you will see it. If a woman plots betrayal, you will know it. If darkness lives inside a heart, the eye will expose it." Adanma stared at the queen in amazement. She had given her more than she asked for, but listen carefully, the queen said, bringing her out of her thoughts. "The eye must never be used for greed, never for curiosity, never for selfish gain. It was created to reveal truth and truth alone." Adanma nodded immediately. "I understand." The queen smiled, then turned toward two female mermaids standing nearby. "Take her to the surface. She can go in peace." The mermaids bowed. "As you command, Your Majesty." The journey upward began. They swam for a while, until Adanma saw sunlight, real sunlight. As soon as Adanma's leg touched the ground around the shallow parts of the water and her head emerged from the water, the mermaids left her and swam back without a word. The morning sun warmed her skin. Adanma walked awkwardly to the bank. As she approached the shore, a few villagers happened to be nearby. They had come to fetch water. The women carrying clay pots stood glued to the spot when they saw her. One pot slipped from trembling hands and shattered. Nobody moved. Their eyes were fixed on Adanma. She was assumed dead by the villagers already. One woman finally found her voice and began to scream. Another dropped her bucket and shouted, "Ghost!" People began running. Others abandoned their containers. Within seconds, everyone was fleeing and screaming, "Adanma's ghost has returned." The cries echoed across the riverbank, but Adanma ignored them. She simply continued to walk. She walked through the familiar bush path back toward the village. This is just the beginning. A big revelation is on the way. Please kindly watch out for part 2. Kindly subscribe and turn on notification so you get notified when part 2 is uploaded. Thank you so much for watching.